thousands of cancelled services due to the driver shortage.
Commuter upon commuter lining the curb as Auckland Transport struggled to meet a sudden surge in demand.
4 hours of what I would call absolute chaos.
It's definitely not the best, I'll say that, in terms of access.
The 20-minute wait is something that could be fixed.
We need better service from the North Shore.
Yeah, it's a little bit late every now and then.
Compared to Wellington, Auckland has the best transport.
Oh, not when things are delayed and the ferries don't run.
Ferry was actually on time today.
Probably just need a bit of a clean, but other than that, it's great.
The trains are all right, but then they're not running where I live, so the station's closed.
Yeah, they're pretty much stuck where you are. You get to your next destination and then your bus has been cancelled for another hour or 2 hours.
The cycleway routes are good. The problem is that they sometimes just stop and then you just have to go out in amongst the cars and it's dangerous.
Sometimes they come, sometimes they don't come, like very unpredictable.
Trains are terrible, they're never running and it's really annoying.
Yep, all my trains are cancelled.
It's pretty good, it's better than Ireland.
The train service is great.
It's ass.
We'd like to invest millions more, but there's limits to everything. You've got to make it work.
Well, a mixture of views, most of them negative. It doesn't help that Auckland Transport has just had to cut its budget to help fix the council's debt problem. So how can you improve the service with less money? Auckland Transport CEO Dean Kimpton joins me now. Tinakwe, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Oh, let's talk customer satisfaction. Let's talk what they're saying there. Buses, trains, ferries in May, 23% of customers rated at 8 out of 10. You can't be happy with that.
No, we're not happy with that, and everything we're doing is focused on addressing that.
Yeah.
And I'm really pleased to say that as we've looked to restore the services, and remember, before Christmas there was 15% of all services cancelled. As it stands today, less than 5%. So we're working very hard to get those services back, keep the customers satisfied. 96% of all people before COVID are still catching a bus. It is catching up.
Okay, so all right, so people are using it, but the satisfaction rates are not great.
No, we're not happy with them.
Your stats don't line up with what the public transports are using. I mean, you say that punctuality is like, on target, but the people catching these things are saying they're not turning up on time. Why is there a disconnection between the two?
In January this year, we were 570 bus drivers short. Today, we're 164. We've addressed salaries, we've addressed staffing shortages on buses, on ferries. End of July, we will have a full complement back, and that's been our
first
deep commitment. By the end of July.
That's been brought forward from September, because it was going to be September.
And we're really pleased with that.
All right, but you could make this better for people, because one of the gripes is that they're not getting clear communication about when services are delayed or when services are cancelled. I think it was 85% in the last survey. You're not dealing with the grumpiness, and you've got years of grumpiness to overcome.
We do. And look, that's one of the challenges we've got. So we've brought bus drivers back on, we'll be bringing ferry drivers back on, and there's still some pain to go on ferries. You've seen what's happening in the train network, so we know we've got significant issues across all the networks. We also need certainty of funding, so we can actually deliver those services. This year we dropped them 20% because we had to address the budget cuts you just talked about. If we don't get certainty of funding, we may have to reduce them next year. And that's one of the key issues on the table. We can't run a business like this.
All right. So, I mean, the target is to reduce levels to pre-COVID levels, isn't it? To restore levels to pre-COVID levels.
Our target, yes, and our objective is late this year, early next year, we want to be back at that 100 million passenger movements per year, which is equivalent to around about what we were pre-COVID.
But you can't do that if you're going to reduce services by 20%.
No, we can't, but we've restored the funding that allows us to go back to that 100 million, and that's one of the things that we have achieved.
Right, so you're saying that the funding is there to restore to pre-COVID levels.
Correct.
How can you do that, though, when you've just had to cut $32.5 million from your budget?
With a lot of hard work from a very good team to make sure that we're as operationally efficient as we can be. So we've been able to do both.
Yeah, but you've got to cut other things to get that. If you're going to restore services to that level, other things have got to go, right?
That's right.
So what's going?
So unfortunately, we've had to let go a number of staff. How many? 142.
142 full-time roles?
Full-time roles.
What sort of staff?
Oh, across the board. Range of support staff, project managers, support staff, etc.
And is that process finished or is that undergoing?
Process is finished.
Process is finished. So you cut staff, but you've got to cut other things as well, and that's projects, isn't it?
Correct. So we've had to reduce projects, we've looked at operational efficiencies, we've struck better deals with our suppliers, so it's a broad suite of initiatives to address cost.
One of the cost areas, or one of the areas that you've cut a lot, it seems to be cycling and road corridor improvements. In the budget, it says they're down by 63%. I mean, that's not going to get people out of cars.
We've got a deep concern about maintaining the existing networks, no question, and that's one of the issues we put before Council and the government. You cannot continue to grow your asset base and put new assets into the system without supporting the renewals and maintenance funding. And that's the core issue that we need to talk about. That is, how do you, in the long term, fund what will go from a $26 billion asset base to a $40 billion asset base that needs to be maintained so you can just deliver the same level of service? If we don't get to that topic, then we're always talking about what's happening in the next 1 month, 6 months, 12 months.
So short-termism, right? A lot of short-termism going on.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So you are having to do $32.5 million worth of budget cuts, and yet you're saying you actually need far more certainty and far more funding in the future.
Absolutely.
So is the network just going to stay as is at the moment if you don't have that certainty?
If we do not resolve the revenue side, which is the tax side, essentially, it's the fuel excise duties, the road user charges. Will we bring in tolls or will we bring in congestion charging? How will we fund the transport system we desire?
We've been having this conversation about congestion charging forever. Do you want congestion charges in Auckland?
I want us to solve how we are going to fund our transport system. And if if part of that is congestion charging, then yes.
Yes.
But we need to step back and think about it and then do something and not talk about it.
OK, so that's the long-term funding issue. And
it's not long-term. It's got to happen in the next several years, otherwise we're not going to have $40 billion worth of assets.
Your budget documents do say by 24, 25, you've got a pinch point in funding.
Absolutely.
So is that
We've
that
got
close?
to resolve this issue.
All right. Let's just go back to what you are cutting, OK? So what do you say to cyclists when you have to reduce those kinds of connected communities program, which you've scrapped, when cycleways and cycling corridors and road corridors, those programs are being reduced?
So connected communities was more than just cycling. That's the first thing. Okay, it was about some placemaking. But for sure, we have reduced cycling, but we've also reduced our renewals and maintenance, and we're also reducing other capital works. So it's not just about cycling. This is not a big trade-off in cycling. As a matter of fact, we just approved Great North Road, but you've got Point Chev, you've got Glennis, Tamaki. All those big urban cycle projects are still continuing.
So the ones that you've committed to are continuing.
The question is, what do we do in the future? And what we've said is that we think there is a more cost-effective way of delivering a cycle network without these large urban projects. So how do we deliver effective kilometres at a reduced cost?
Yeah, I mean, so you are committed to reducing the reductions of, the emissions reductions, the TERP plan, as it's called, for Auckland Transport, aren't you? But that involves getting people out of cards, a mode switch, as it were. Are you confident that what you've just cut is going to enable that?
So what we have to do is rethink the question. And so if I can suggest that if we just think that reducing emissions is going to be through cycling and walking, we're never going to get there. So it is through public transport, and it's thinking about what does emissions reduction mean for every investment decision we make, and so that's our commitment, is thinking that through. So for every capital project, every busway, every cycleway, what does that mean? How do we bake this in?
Do you think there has been too much emphasis placed on cycling and walking?
No, I don't think there's been too much emphasis placed on cycling and walking.
Right.
It's an important part of it.
But you're just saying that is not the way to get emissions reduction.
Well, it's not the only way. Actually, the game changer, if you want to reduce emissions and vehicle use, you're going to be enhancing public transport. That's why I can say confidently that if we are going to get anywhere near our emissions reduction targets, you've got to take passenger trips from 100 million a year this year to 200 million over the next 10 years.
Let's talk about the next few years then. I mean, what does the gold standard public transport network look like? Frequency, passenger trips, what does it look like?
So gold standard for me will be 2% of the trips might be cancelled or changed or delayed. Okay?
Only 2%?
98% is our target.
Right.
And that's where we need to be.
But that's the existing trips. I mean, you were talking about, say, 200 million passengers by what time frame?
Oh, over the next 10 years, by the mid-2030s. But at the same time, we'll have grown as a city by 400, 500,000.
And so frequency of service, notifications, clarity of communication, all those kinds of things?
Reliable, frequent, fast, preference.
And how far away are you from that now? I mean, it's a long way away?
On the existing bus network, we'd expect that we will have restored the frequency, the reliability, the safety, and our target is to get that by the end of this year. In terms of speed, we're looking at how we better manage our network so we can give preference to buses, and that's a technology investment that we are committed to and we've started on.
And finally, when are you going to get that customer satisfaction that we talked about at the beginning of the interview? When are you going to get that back? When you don't see people on the street saying, it's us.
Yeah, I know, that's terrible, and I'm disappointed in it too. So everything we are doing is lining up to deliver awesome customer satisfaction and experience. So deeply committed to that, and if we're ever going to go from 100 million passenger trips to 200 million, guess what? we'll do that through delighting our customers, and they'll be saying, yes, I want to do that instead of the car.
Okay. Dean Kempton, good luck with your job.
Thank you very much.
Dean Kempton, AT CEO there.